Mr. President, I rise today to address the Senate in my capacity as President pro tempore. I hope my colleagues will give attention to what I'm about to say and will take it to heart, because I speak from the heart out of respect for my colleagues and out of love for this great body in which we are all privileged to serve. Mr. President, the Senate has a long and justly celebrated tradition of comity and respect among members. Although there have been occasional exceptions throughout history, on the whole, senators have taken great care to treat each other with courtesy and respect, both in private discussions and in public deliberations. We do this for several reasons. First, because mutual respect is essential for us to be able to work together to forge consensus on difficult issues that stir deep and sometimes divisive feelings. Passing meaningful legislation in this body typically requires the two parties to work together, and that in turn requires a trust and a certain level of goodwill. Courtesy and decorum foster an atmosphere where we can work in good faith to find common ground, where we can appeal to nobler instincts to do what's best for all Americans and not just those of a particular partisan persuasion. The second reason we treat each other with courtesy and respect is because it's the honorable thing to do. We come to this body as 100 men and women with vastly different backgrounds, life experiences, and views on how government should operate. But we share a common humanity and a common goal to improve this great nation and to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. We divide into parties and join caucuses. We fight passionately about matters of tremendous consequence, but we do not become enemies. We remain colleagues, and colleagues treat each other with respect. We treat each other with honor, even when we feel another has perhaps not accorded us the same esteem. Squabbling and sanctimony may be tolerated in other venues or perhaps on the campaign trail, but they have no place among colleagues in the United States Senate. The third and most important reason we treat each other with courtesy and respect is because we are the people's representatives. We are not here on some frolic or to pursue personal ambitions. We are here because the people of the United States have entrusted us with the solemn responsibility to act on their behalf in shaping our nation's laws. This is a high and holy calling. It is not something to take lightly. It is a sacred trust in which pettiness or grandstanding should have no part. We are here to do serious work, and doing this work, egos will inevitably be bruised. Feelings from time to time may be hurt. This is inherent in the nature of politics, but we are here to carry out the people's business. We serve the people, not our own egos. When we are on the losing side of a particular debate, when we are disappointed, we pick ourselves up and move ahead to the next challenge. Our nation's founders designed the Senate to play a special role in our constitutional system. In contrast to the more raucous, populist House, the Senate was to be a body of deliberation and reasoned judgment. Senators were to seek the common good and consider national, not just parochial interests in crafting legislation and considering nominees. Mr. President, decorum is essential to executing this constitutionally ordained role. Deliberation and reasoned judgment require an atmosphere of restraint, an atmosphere of thoughtful disagreement. Deliberation without decorum is not deliberation at all. It is bickering. And bickering, Mr. President, is beneath this body. Regrettably, in recent times, the Senate floor has too often become a forum for partisan messaging and ideological grandstanding rather than a setting for serious debate. It has been misused as a tool to advance personal ambitions, a venue to promote political campaigns, and even a vehicle to enhance fundraising efforts, all at the expense of proper functioning of this body. Most egregiously, Mr. President, the Senate floor has even become a place where senators have singled out colleagues by name to attack them in personal terms and to impugn their character in blatant disregard of Senate rules, which plainly prohibits such conduct. Mr. President, the Senate floor has hosted many passionate debates on crucial issues over the years. Tempers from time to time have flared. Voices have on occasion been raised, but we have almost universally confined our criticisms to policies and to ideas, to what we think is wrong-headed about particular bills or proposals. We have not, at least in my memory, called our opponents dishonest or sought to disparage their motives. To bring personal attacks to the Senate floor would be to import the most toxic elements of our current political discourse into the well of the Senate, into the very heart of this institution. This would serve only to pollute our deliberations, to break the bonds of trust that are essential for achieving some measure of consensus, and to invite the dysfunction that so saturates our media and popular culture into this storied chamber. For those of us who care about the Senate as an institution and who want it once again to help solve the vexing challenges that face our nation, such misuse of the Senate floor must not be tolerated. Each of us, Republicans and Democrats alike, must stand together in support of the Senate's time-honored traditions of collegiality and respect. We must stand resolute in requiring that the Senate's formal rules concerning dignity and decorum be observed. And we must ensure that the pernicious trend of turning the Senate floor into a forum for advancing personal ambitions, for promoting political campaigns, or for enhancing fundraising activities comes to a stop. There are enough other platforms for those seeking to accomplish those objectives. The Senate floor need not be one. Mr. President, I recognize that many of my colleagues are quite new to the Senate and may not yet have had many opportunities to experience its proper institutional role as a forum for reasoned discussion and constructive debate. Some are less familiar with its traditions of comity and respect. Others may know little of the Senate's history in rising above parochialism and narrow self-interest. And a few, I regret to say, seem unconcerned for its historic pivotal role in promoting consensus and helping to overcome our nation's challenges. Mr. President, as one who has had the privilege of serving here for the past 4 decades, I can attest from firsthand experience that the Senate can be and has been, in times not too far past, a distinguished and constructive body that does much good for our nation. I recall vividly times when this body was marked by cooperation and goodwill rather than rancor and disrepute. In some respects, the Senate today is but a mere shadow of its former self, another casualty of the permanent political campaign. This is deeply disheartening to those like myself who are here to experience this body's better days, or were here to experience this body's better days. And it has severely damaged the proper governance of our nation. Mr. President, I've been frank in my remarks today. This candor stems from my genuine concern for this body and its future. I've been frank because I've seen so much of what I love about this body frittered away in recent years for small-minded, short-sighted partisan gain. By virtue of my long service here in the Senate and my role as President pro tempore, I am a dedicated institutionalist. I care deeply about this institution, and I want it to work. Our current majority leader has made important strides in putting the Senate back on a path towards meaningful deliberation and constructive lawmaking aimed at the common good. But his efforts and those of other senators on both sides of the aisle who take the long view to seeking to build up this institution will not suffice unless each one of us is committed to instilling comity and respect as a core feature of everything we do. Let us each move forward with a renewed sense of honor and respect, a resolve not to tolerate misuse of the Senate floor, a commitment to do our part to restore civility and constructive debate as defining characteristics of this body, and a renewed willingness to work together for the good of all Americans. Thank you, Mr. President.